Yo, what is up guys? It's the Goblin and welcome back to another Call of Duty Black Ops 4 video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the MADDOX RFB because the MADDOX has received an absolutely crazy amount of changes this week. That started with patch 1.13 where this gun received a bunch of nerfs as well as a little bit of recoil stability to the basically the operator mod version of this with the Echo Fire. And then this gun was nerfed so hard that a lot of people were complaining about it, that the recoil and stuff was really bad. So they ended up buffing this weapon a few days later on a game settings update. I believe it was on like February 20th, was it? Yeah, on the February 20th game settings update. So then that brought this back to a more reasonable point where it's at in this game. I've been playing with it in this gameplay. You'll see me using it after the patch without the Echo Fire, with the normal MADDOX class, and with the Echo Fire. We're going to talk all about it. If you guys could drop a like on this thing, let's go for 1,500 likes. That would be absolutely awesome. I would very, very much appreciate if we could hit that. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and not already subscribed, and top 5 guns, and of course more videos coming soon on this. So smack that like button and let's get right into it. So the first bit of this gameplay, you will see me using this MADDOX with the fully automatic version, no operator mod, just the normal class stuff. Now with these changes, what have changed? We'll go through that first of all. So in patch 1.13, these are all the MADDOX changes that happened, right? So this was on Tuesday. Reduced recoil stability in the first 5 shots of the bullet pattern, and that was the big nerf. So the first 5 shots all had more recoil because of that. However, on the Echo Fire operator mod, they improved the recoil stability. The reason why they did that is because when they're making this gun have way more recoil, they still want the Echo Fire to be usable, so they of course nerfed the recoil, but then, you know, balanced it out a little bit by adding a slight buff to the Echo Fire there. Next is with Quick Draw 1 and Quick Draw 2, they did reduce the ADS speeds on those. Personally, from playing and from experiencing it, I can't really notice that much. It's not that significant of a change to the quick draw speeds. Especially, I think the reasoning behind that is because I pair it with Gung Ho as well, which helps me get my gun up fast out of a sprint also, and is kind of a good pairing with quick draw because you get your gun up quick and then you're also aiming down sights fast. So that was the changes to quick draw. On stock, they reduced the ADS move speed. Now this is one that is fairly noticeable, or I wouldn't say fairly noticeable, but definitely noticeable, especially if you're used to using like SMGs or really fast strafing guns, even other assault rifles with stock. It's a little bit slower now on the MADDOX, and I think that's a fair change because of course this weapon was the best gun in the game by far before, so I think that is a fair change to that with the stock. Next is with the ELO sight as well. They reduced the recoil stability. Personally, I still would rock with ELO on it. You could go with the reflex sight. It's always just been a personal preference between those two. However, going with no sight on this weapon, you don't really see it too often. I think the ELO is still the way to go, even because of that. And that guy hit just such a crazy shot on me as I was mid-jump with the sniper. I don't know if it was a no-scope or what that was. And then, of course, with the console only, also for the MADDOX, they reduced its max damage range from 23.6 yards to 20.8 yards. So there was some very significant nerfs to this weapon. And after that update, the recoil, like this weapon was pretty bad. The recoil was very, very high. A lot of professional players were complaining about it, like I said, and, you know, just the community in general, because think about it from the aspect of if you're a professional player, you're playing for money, you're practicing this game, and then they completely switch up the game, that's going to, you know, have some changes on everything that you had been practicing for the whole time before. Now, with the MADDOX RFB, the changes they added on February 20th that are now active in the game right now is they reduced the recoil on the first, the fourth, and the fifth shots to more closely match the pre-patch recoil stability, but they also added slight recoil increase on the second and third shots compared to pre-patch, or that's how it is. So basically, your second and third shots are going to have more recoil, but the rest of this is going to be the same, and your other nerfs to the damage range and the quick draw and stock are not that, they are noticeable on this weapon, but they're not that significant, where the MADDOX is still a very, very strong gun in this game. And after all of these buffs, nerfs, all that stuff went down, my opinion on it right now is the class setup and what you should run really isn't switched up too much. I think you could run the reflex sight because they did add a little more recoil onto the ELO sight, so that could be one thing that you could do. Or if you don't want to run stock with this weapon, however, for me, it's an assault rifle, it's an already slow moving weapon, I want to have stock on it anyway, even if the stock is nerfed. Like we've seen stock be nerfed for many attachments on many different guns in this game already. So as far as the class setup goes, I wouldn't mix up the class setup with it. fast mags, stock, elo sight, and quick draw I still like to rock with as far as this weapon. Maybe you could take the quick draw off and go with fast mags too now if you really wanted, but I mean the reload time on this weapon is still good, and you can see right here, this is post-patch gameplay. This is after both of the patches had happened, and this is me using it fully automatic. I'm using it on a map where militia, you can see there's a tad bit of recoil, but it's still super duper controllable. And for tips and tricks, what I would say around, let me just finish the class stuff. I gave you guys the attachments. I run the ComSec device, and then Tac Mask, Gung Ho, and Dead Silence. That's the class stuff I was rocking with it. But as far as some tips to change up with this update, I really wouldn't switch up your playstyle too much, but the one thing is that second and third shot recoil, it is more noticeable, and it does jump usually up and to the right. So to counter that, it's something that can be a little more, you can just naturally do it, or not really naturally. At first you're gonna have to consciously do it, but then it will become more natural. Start shooting and try to aim for, of course, mid body on the enemy players, but if you can, even maybe a little bit to the left side of them, just because that recoil is going to take you a bit to the right, and that's what I'm talking about with that. Next here, we're gonna want to talk about the Echo Fire operator mod, because this is one that honestly I don't see many people talk about this except myself, but I've always loved the MADDOX in both variants, the fully auto as well as the operator mod on it, and you can see me using it here. This is the post-patch operator mod, and honestly I think if anything, this one, I don't really notice many changes. The recoil pattern seems very similar to how it was before. Of course, all of the, like if you're running a quick draw or a stock, which you should be, those changes are going to affect it on the Echo Fire as well. But I think in terms of which version of this gun was nerfed harder, the fully auto or the operator mod, I would say the fully auto got hit with the harder nerf because of that second and third shot recoil, how it affects the fully auto versus how it affects the Echo Fire. And as you can see, of course, when they added that recoil stability. So it's so confusing, all the changes that happened with this MADDOX, because they nerfed the MADDOX overall. However, they did a slight recoil buff to that Echo Fire mod to sort of balance that out, and then they ended up buffing the weapon again. So it's still at a worse point, and it's still overall a nerf to where this weapon was last week. But that's sort of where it's sitting at as far as a point in this game right now. As far as this update overall, I really think that it did shake up the game, I guess you could say, or shake up the meta. And as far as the assault rifles, more of the changes were more minor. You know, even if it's a long list of changes, you have to really look at it and see which changes are major, which changes are minor, etc., 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 etc. I think with the SMGs, they really shook that up as well. And of course, I will be updating on top 5 weapons and stuff like that. I just want to get some playtime in and experience. You know, usually when I'm playing nowadays, I have the patch notes up beside me, and I'm sort of testing out the different things and seeing if I notice changes or if changes are not noticeable while playing the game naturally, because that's what's going to matter. You know, if a change like a quick draw is nerfed, but it's such a small nerf where it doesn't really affect your gunfights and you're not really losing many gunfights because of that, that's not a big deal. However, if your 5-hit kill range is buffed on an SMG in a range that you get into a lot of fights with, that's going to affect it a lot more. So as far as these MADDOX changes go, that's why I'm saying the recoil, that second and third shot, those are the biggest changes. The rest of it is just toning it back a little bit with the attachments, because of course, when you have a weapon that was overpowered or very strong in the game, you can tone it back through multiple ways. You know, toning back the attachments, especially with the way that it works in this game, where each attachment affects the weapons differently, and where there's, you know, version level 2s of attachments with quick draw 2, stock 2, and different stuff like that, as well as operator mods. I think that is really cool. So as far as the MADDOX, is this still a go-to gun? Is it still a gun you're going to want to use in this game? 100% yes, it is. That's just how it is. With the Echo Fire is still great. Without the Echo Fire is still great as well. My tips, like I say, is if you were someone that used the MADDOX quite a bit before, it's been shaken up, and I would recommend go into a private match or just when you're playing and hold down that recoil pattern and just do it, you know, 10 times, because of course it's going to be different. It's not going to be different every single time, but it could go in different patterns, right? Or, you know, similar pattern, but it's different. So you test those out. You can learn the recoil pattern of this gun. Of course, it's going to be hitting up to the right, and that's why I recommend playing with this weapon. You can learn different ways to shoot. Right there, I end up losing that gunfight with the Echo Fire, which was honestly a gunfight that I think I could have won. But this was a game where I got my streaks up. And by the way, with this buff and these patch notes, the streak buffs are absolutely awesome. I've been rocking with the drone squad, which got a buff, the sniper's nest, which is now harder to take down, and then of course the good old strike team, because why not would I rock with the strike team? And basically this game ends where everyone ends up quitting, and that isn't a problem. That it's weird, because that's been a problem that when kill streaks are super duper strong, like let's say BO2 is probably when I had the most amount of that problem, where you would start stomping them with a swarm of dogs and the enemies would start to back out. That happens a little bit on other games, but over the last couple of years in Call of Duty, it hasn't been as big of a problem because the streaks haven't been as strong. However, with this update and in Black Ops 4, the streaks are actually in a really good place, and I'm hoping in next year's Call of Duty they will be as well, because that's really what, you know, the classic, what Call of Duty, or one of the things Call of Duty was built on. Those streaks are really awesome, and yeah, more videos coming up soon, guys. That's it for my MADDOX video talking about it. This weapon is still really, really good. Do not listen to people that say it's been nerfed to the ground, because that buff that they added sort of fixed that, and this weapon, especially if you're just playing in public matches, is still very usable. You just have to keep that in mind, that it is a little bit of a different weapon as before, and it's not so far above the others. Like before, you would just take this weapon and the fire rate and the accuracy of it was enough to win your fights. Now you got to be a little more conscious, but it's the MADDOX, and it's still an absolutely awesome gun. Drop a like on this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.